All right. Hey everyone, thank you for joining the Rapido monthly update. Today's update is for October 2024. My name is Megan Weldon and I appreciate your time today. These sessions really are geared towards libraries who are already familiar with Rapido, libraries who are already using Rapido. If you're looking to get to know Rapido, that may be a different session that we can work with you to set up, and my email address is there. So if you're here to get to know Rapido, maybe we can connect via another session. You're welcome to be here. This session is geared towards sharing updates for libraries who are already a bit familiar with Rapido due to their use of Rapido. So today's session will be a familiar format to folks who have attended these sessions in the past. Our agenda today is first a few updates and topics related to the Rapido community. Then we will discuss a few highlights from the upcoming release. Today, that will be the November 2024 monthly release. Then there will be a few frequently asked questions, a couple topics that have come up lately in community conversations that will give some insights into, and then a few moments for questions that you might have from today's session. Okay, the topic of the wonderful Rapido community. We'll begin this topic by acknowledging the libraries that have gone live so far in the month of October. And that is quite a few libraries all in one month. In the US, we welcome Empire State University to the Rapido community. And then from Spain, adding a new country to the list of countries where libraries are using Rapido, we had the CSUC consortia. 12 libraries in this consortia have gone live this month, and we welcome you to the Rapido community. Another topic that might be relevant for our community is an upcoming webinar. We just mentioned the CSUC consortia. Here's the CSU consortia in California presenting their experience with using Rapido, specifically their journey to unifying 24 campus libraries with one resource sharing system. I will provide the registration link at the end of our session. The session will be facilitated by Chris Lee from the California State University Chancellor's Office and our colleague Mike Richens from the Ex Libris resource sharing team. This is a great session to attend if you're curious and want to hear more about another library's or group of libraries experience using Rapido, or if you have colleagues who are interested in this topic, you may forward this webinar onto them for their attendance as well. Another topic from the Rapido community is a great news story that has come out of a library using Rapido in the UK, Nottingham Trent University. We worked with the folks there to share a little bit about their experience via written format in speaking to how Rapido has impacted services at their library and factors informing their decision to move to Rapido. So they speak a lot to their university's overarching goal for connecting with a global community, and Rapido has supported this goal. They speak a bit to the challenges they were facing previously regarding processing requests and highlighted the need to change their resource sharing solution and policy. It's a great story that'll be available on our website very soon. Okay, recently there's been a lot of activity in the resource sharing community, and I've gotten to connect with so many folks at these different events. So if we were all in the same place at the same time, it was great to see you at the Northwest ILL conference in Eugene, at the Southeastern Resource Sharing Conference in Nashville, and at the ECOG conference in Long Beach, California. This has been a lot of travel in the past 5 weeks and a lot of opportunities to have great conversations with folks from the resource sharing community, as well as folks in the Ex Libris user group community at large. If we have any topics outstanding from the past 5 weeks, please feel free to nudge that into the top of my email in case I missed that during these opportunities to connect in person with so many of you. Another topic for our community is the enhancement cycle. We saw recently in the listserv that the community has renamed this from the NERS cycle to the curve enhancement cycle. And where we're at in this process for the Rapido community is we are in that second round of voting with the voting closing very soon. So if you are able to vote, your window is still open, but it is closing on that second round of voting for that enhancement cycle. Um, from enhancements is a good transition into talking about developments from the November release. So today's developments are a few of the highlights that you will see when the November release hits your environments. The first development is related to the theme of optimize. Today, when I'm introducing this topic of optimize, I'm thinking about opportunities within your workflows. And the highlight within this theme for the November release really relates to workflow options within the lost and damage experience. So I'm going to introduce the new lost and damaged invoice functionality that you have available to Rapido, but first start out by just kind of addressing the various workflows and aspects that may be relevant to you as a borrowing library and as a lending library. So from the borrowing library's perspective, there are a few kind of places of engaging with the loss damage workflow that you may be familiar with or may not be. And I think it's important to kind of acknowledge all of them as we introduce this new invoice functionality. So as a borrowing partner in this relationship, you may be receiving overdue letters from the lender because they can have those letters turned on to be having them sent to you automatically. As a borrower, you can be sending overdue notices to your patron or your library end user to be letting them know that their items are now overdue. You can also have lost item fees being sent to your patrons, so being applied to their patron account, as well as being sent to them via notices. And additionally, as a part of this kind of workflow or dynamic that may come up is you can perform the lost action on your borrowing request. And that's what we see in this screenshot here. So I'm in my borrowing list of requests. Perhaps I have a particular set that helps me find these requests. And I see that the lost action is available. As the borrowing partner, if I perform this lost action, it allows me to send a message to the lender. Perhaps I know this item is lost yet it's not even overdue, or whatever kind of other messaging that you might want to pass on to your lending partner in this situation. When you perform that lost action and send the message, the request status is updated to lost communicated. A new aspect of this workflow is that you as a borrower may begin to receive lost damage invoices from your lending partners. And once you have paid those lost fees, you can update the request status to lost and fee paid. All right, now thinking about the lending library's perspective, what kind of options or actions might be relevant to them in the resource sharing landscape when they're thinking about how to handle lost and damaged items? So the lender can also find items declared by the borrowing partner. So if that borrowing partner did perform that lost action on the item, they will find items with the lost status and they'll see the system note that their partner sent over when they performed that action. Lenders can perform the lost action, which allows you to send a message to your partner and apply the fee amount. So whatever your fee might be for your partner losing that item. This updates the request status to lost and fee communicated. New to this kind of workflow functionality is you can send a lost damaged invoice. You can also update the request to completed after the invoice is paid. And sorry, I see a typo in that line there. And additionally, within the kind of lending perspective or lending aspect of this workflow, there are new fields available in the lending API that are relevant to this new invoice functionality. You can see what those fields are there, the sent date, the invoice ID number, etc. for if you are using that API. Now let's have a bit of a deeper dive into this new functionality as a part of this workflow being the invoice itself. So as a part of this new invoicing functionality, there is a letter that you will find in your environments. It is the partner loss damage invoice letter. You'll find this letter living alongside all of your other letters in your environment under configuration, general, letters, and then letter configuration. You can find this particular letter by searching for its name, partner loss damage invoice letter. By default, this letter is not active, it is not enabled. So if you want to be using this letter, you'll need to enable this letter. To send this letter, you'll see that there's a new action in your environments called Send Loss Damage Invoice. This action is successful if the invoice printed value is no, if the shipping date is populated, meaning you won't be able to invoice for items you haven't actually shipped, and if the loss damage fee is populated. I won't be sending an invoice if the value is 0. So you will see various confirmation messages related to performing this action, and the different messages will give you insight into what happened. Successful invoices are invoices that were sent successfully. Failed invoices are invoices to partners that didn't send, right? Maybe they didn't have the shipping date, or if your letter itself is not yet enabled. Skipped invoices are those that are not relevant, so it's not going to send an invoice if you try to send it on a request that it's not relevant to. This may occur if you're trying to send the invoice if the lost damage item fee field value is null, or if the invoice has already been sent. So meaning if the lost damage invoice printed value is already to yes, the invoice is not going to send. Thinking about all of this functionality, it might be important to highlight on the lending request view, there is a request cost section. In this cost section, you'll see the various existing invoice, kind of the fields related to existing invoice functionality. That invoice functionality is related to if you're charging maybe at transactional fees or per request. And below those areas, you'll see these new fields visible, and those are the loss damage fields. Loss damage invoice printed value, loss damage invoice paid value, the fee itself. They're all visible there in that request cost section. And again, just reiterating what these fields might mean, the lost damage invoice printed means if the invoice was sent or not. There's also going to be the lost damage invoice sent date, so you'll know when the invoice itself has been sent. And there is an invoice number, and this invoice number is automatically populated for the library's reference, but it is something that you can edit. And here from our lending request, we see the send lost damage invoice action on the request itself. This is just another screenshot where the various fields are highlighted. You can see the send loss damage invoice with a red square around it. You can see that there is a shipping date is populated, and you can see that the item fee is populated as well, and that the invoice invoice printed value is no. In this case, the invoice will send to our partner because all 3 of those parameters that are being referenced have the correct values. In addition to sending the invoice from an individual request, you can send it as a bulk action or perform this action as a bulk action. So perhaps you have a set of requests or have otherwise navigated to a list of requests where you need to send an invoice or lost damaged invoice. You can select multiple requests by selecting the checkbox next to them, or there's that checkbox in the upper left that allows you to select all of the requests in that view. And then you can see in that new menu there, the send lost damaged invoice action as visible to send to all of them. Okay, and as already acknowledged, there is a new letter in this workflow. So if you like to customize your letters, that's something to pay attention to. However, just knowing that you do need to enable this letter in order for this action to work for your library. Thinking about the letters, we know that you might want to find where they live after they've been sent. So you'll find them as an attachment on the partner that you've sent them to. So under fulfillment, if you go to resource sharing and then partners, and find the particular partner of interest or partner that you are trying to look at, you'll see that there's an attachments tab and you'll see the various invoices that you've sent to that partner. Okay, the next highlighted development from the November release is related to the theme of Connect. Today's topic is really more relevant to libraries who may be using Rapido and connecting their Rapido environment to their Iliad product as well. So if you're a library that is using both resource sharing solutions concurrently, this next development is maybe relevant to you in thinking about how you connect those two systems. So for libraries who are using Rapido and Iliad at the same time, there is the Iliad API that transfers the pickup location into your Iliad environment. So if you are having your Iliad partner set up in Rapido as a partner of last resort, and you want the pickup location that your user selected to transfer into Iliad. Today, what that looks like is the pickup location ID is transferring, and that might be a string of numbers or something that is not quite how you're used to seeing or reading your pickup location itself. Today, with the November release, you'll be able to submit a support ticket to have that changed to transfer the pickup location name instead, which in this example is instead of a string of numbers is an actual, name typed out, and the change is limited just for your knowledge to 50 characters. So if you have a lot of pickup locations with very similar names, it might be something to consider. But if you're using this API and you want to have the name transfers instead of the ID value, you can submit a support ticket to have that change made. Okay, the next development that I want to highlight from the November release is regarding the theme of personalize. And from today's perspective, when we're thinking about personalize, I'm thinking more so about how you want to personalize your library's end user experience, so your library patrons experience. This option that you'll have available to your end users is to hide the blank resource sharing form. So this form is linked off of that text. Still didn't find what you need? Click here to send a request. Note that that text is customizable via a label, so perhaps it reads as something else in your library, but the form that we are discussing is the form that is linked off of that kind of position in text within your discovery. So why might we, as a library, be making this decision or wanting to hide this blank form, and how would we do it if it aligns with our intentions and goals? So library goals that may align with wanting to hide this blank form is maybe you're a library that only wants to be allowing users to submit requests via offers. This is not a choice for everyone, but for some libraries, we know that this is relevant to them. Or maybe you want to only allow them to submit requests via the blank form if they are of a particular user group. So if you want to make this configuration decision, you can do that with under the configuration menu, resource sharing request forms, and then the hide Rapido options. You'll see that there is a new section on this page with the header hide Rapido blank form. Here you can choose if you're going to hide the blank form completely, if you're going to hide it from particular user groups, etc. So that option is available to you with the November release. Okay, a few frequently asked questions to highlight a few topics that have come up in community conversations lately, and then I will check the chat to see what questions have been shared today. All right, we saw a discussion in the listserv regarding the meaning of the Rapido indicator, so just wanted to provide a little bit of clarity in case that was an outstanding question still. So on your request facet list, you will find when you're in your resource sharing view and you're looking at sets or maybe making sets, you'll see the facet Rapido indicator with values of yes or no. You'll also see this value within analytics. The value will be yes on a request if Rapido automatically found the partner for you. Even if you are mediating those requests, maybe you have a mediation rule that stops it to fix ISBN or whatever other kind of value is of interest to you. But if the Rapido then, after your mediation, goes on to find find a partner to fill the request automatically, then the value is yes. So you may see this value be yes if the request is routed to Rapid ILL partners or pod partners. The value will be no on the request if the request was filled via a rota or staff otherwise selected or manually engaged with assigning a partner to that request. So there's a little bit, hopefully a little bit more clarity into what those values might mean in your environment. Okay, another question I received is when I'm performing the Enrich from Global Index view, sometimes I know that my partners have an item, but I don't necessarily see them in the results list. So there are a few points that I want to speak to on this topic. Libraries are using the Enrich from Global Index action when maybe they have a request stopped for mediation or when they are working on requests that come back as not yet filled by any of their partners. This Enrich from Global Index action is a great opportunity to be able to search the global index and then be able to select different results to pull in data from the different results for your request. So maybe this happens if your end user selects an offer for an item that is not widely held by Rapido partners or not held by any of your partners. You can go via this workflow pathway to select a different result for then getting the request to be filled by those other partners. If you're not seeing partners on that list and you've otherwise checked that they have this item, the reason may be that they are not data sharing or don't have the data sharing option enabled. So as a community, this is a good configuration to consider as it really supports the workflows of your colleagues. This configuration is an easy one under configuration, general configuration, and you'll find data sharing profile. It's a toggle from no to yes. Having the value be at yes just provides that transparency from the Enrich from Global Index view from your partners to be able to see if your library has that item. One other configuration that I wanted to highlight today is this override local holdings setting. This, unlike the data sharing that I would widely recommend, this setting may be more particular to the nuances and other decisions at your library. So I want to explain this setting a little bit more and provide some context as to why this might be a selection that your library makes. So this setting is found under your Rapid ILL partner. So if you go into fulfillment and then partners and find your Rapid ILL partner on the parameters tab, you'll see this new option called ignore local holding. This option came out a few releases back. This setting is relevant if you do not want Rapid ILL to be performing a local holdings check when the requested material goes to Rapid ILL. And Rapid ILL is checking against what items you've defined as lendable to your partners. Your library may not want this check to be performed if you are already doing a local holdings check via your mediation rules. So as a library, if you have a mediation rule in play using either the self-ownership parameter equals true or the self-ownership the self-owned and available parameter equals true, you're already looking to your mediation rules are already looking to see if the requested material is something that your library owns. You're then handling it in a variety of ways, whether you are processing those requests in the borrowing side, applying a label to release that to the Rapid ILL network, or maybe you're handling those in the lending side because you have the fill locally action in tandem with that mediation rule. And then if you can't fill those requests from the lending side, you are performing the reject action if that request can't be filled locally locally and needs to go into Rapid ILL. So if your library using a flavor of these mediation rules and you're stopping these requests already via these mediation rules and staff are reviewing and trying to fill them, and if they can't, and depending on their workflow pathway, they're releasing that request to go to the Rapid ILL network. Rapid ILL is by default performing another check to see, do you have this item? If Rapid ILL finds it as something that you have based on what you've defined as lendable, the request comes back into your borrowing task list as with the status of local holding. Then, as a library, if you want to release this request back to the Rapid ILL network, you are having to perform the override local holding action. If, as a library, you are finding that the override local holding action is redundant to the way that you like to work, then this setting would be a good option for you. It will prevent Rapid ILL from doing that second check and putting that request into that local holding status so that you will not have to perform that override local holding action. Hopefully that provides a little bit more insight into whether or not this is a setting that aligns with the way that your library likes to work. If there are additional questions, I think we can connect individually to help understand if this is a good setting for your library. So I will end today with saying thank you for your time. I want to drop a few links into the chat and see what questions I can address in today's session. There may be questions that I need to come back to. Just give me a moment to navigate screen sharing and chat reading and all of that at the same time. Okay, into the chat now, you should see a few different links that may be relevant from today's conversation. One of those being the webinar registration for hearing the CSU's Rapido story. The Rapido listserv is a great place that you will, and resource for you to engage with conversations with the Rapido community and the release notes from this month's release. I'm going to look to the chat to see what questions we have in today's chat for answering today. Okay, I see a question. Is the shipping date on the loss damage invoice action the shipping date of the invoice or something else? So the invoice is referencing whether or not the item has been shipped. So it's looking for the shipping date being populated. And then regarding the date of the invoice being sent itself, there is the loss damage invoice sent field. So hopefully that provides clarity on what the shipping date is being referenced and then what field is populated after the invoice has been sent. Okay, I see a couple of questions related to how the payments are made and received for invoices. That is up to your individual libraries. The invoice functionality is to be able to send the invoices and to be able to update whether or not you've received payment. Coming up in another release, there'll be analytics. These fields are going to be added to analytics so that you can track these different, the fields that were presented today in analytics as well. I see a question regarding if the invoice letter can be sent to additional contacts. It is sent to that partner. Okay, I see another question regarding the Enrich from Global Index action. You can and if they can perform that action on book requests, you can perform that action on book requests. At this time, I see a question regarding the invoicing being automated. There is not an automated sending of the invoices. Staff are deciding what that invoice cost will be, and they are sending the invoice via either the action on the request or via the bulk action on that list of requests. Okay, thank you all for a really robust Q&A session at this time. I see there are a couple of questions that I might have to get back to folks about. So jotting those down so that we can correspond via email. And then I'm providing my email in the chat in case you don't have it yet, so that we can follow up with any topics that have come up from today. Okay, thank you all for your time. If there are additional questions, I'll hang out for a moment to see what comes into the chat. Otherwise, let's connect at a later date. Thank you for your time. Okay, going to end today's session.